We live as if we are promised tomorrow. That's not a promise that anybody has. I try to make every footstep count. I try to make every day as complete as possible. I had no plan to come back into politics.
What happened, Minister?
I'll always be grateful to Kennedy Swaratsingh because what she did is give me an opportunity to end my working life the way I would like to. I served in the PNM under Patrick Manning because I felt he was the best person to lead the country at that time. And when I went on the platform and endorsed Kamla Prasad Visesa, I genuinely felt then, as I do feel now, that she is the person to lead this country at this time.
What would you say to the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago that wants more, faster, better, that feels that uncertain? So our Ping Pong Chats are having great impact, but let me ask you for one favor, something free. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Ping Pong Chats. Today with us we have Senator Dr. the Honorable Kennedy Swaratsingh, Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development of Trinidad and Tobago. He also serves as Minister in the Ministry of Finance, and he brings a rare blend of public service, military, academia and private sector experience. Ping Pong Chats is about shaping the present and the future of Trinidad and Tobago, and today we couldn't have a better guest. In his current role, Minister Swaratsingh is leading the formulation of the National Development Plan, discussions on economic diversification, and engagement with private sector and other national and international institutions on how to improve the life of the people of this country. Minister, thank you very much for
You're very welcome.
for
Very
your time.
welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
We are very honored to have you here.
No, I am very honored to be here.
Minister, you have gone through pretty different chapters in your life. You've been priest, you have served in the defense force, you have worked with private sector, multilateral leader, minister. My question is, what is the common thread?
Service. Simple. You know, one of the things that when we grew up and I was born in the 60s and growing up in the 70s, this was all about making sure that you look after your neighbor. You know, when people say that it takes a village to raise a child, when we were growing up, we were very much in part. Well, in those days, you never had cell phones and computers and so on. So you had to work, you had to be in social groups. So we were in CYO and St. Vincent de Paul. But it was always about looking after your neighbor, helping people, working in church. And so that's how we grew up. We grew up recognizing the fact that we were our brothers and sisters keepers. You know, for example, when we were in a youth group, we used to walk everybody home, make sure all the girls get home safely. That's how we grew up. You know, we grew up when we all partying, we all look after each other, make sure everybody is, well taken care of. So when you grow up like that, being someone of service becomes natural because that's how we were socialized. We didn't know anything else. All we knew was that we put other people first, So, and that's, so whether I was in the army or in church or in anything else, it's all about putting people first. As I always used to say, I love that Tattle ad where people are people. You treat people like people, and that's how I live my life. So even as people will tell you, even in terms of where I am now, I still walk Port of Spain. I still, I line up like everybody else. Because when we were growing up, how we were socialized, it was always making sure that you recognize that you're not better than the best of persons. You're not worse than the worst of persons. Like everybody else, you're walking through this journey. You're just trying to do the best you could to leave this space a better place.
What is extraordinary for me is that your flame is still shining and very powerful despite all the time that has passed. That's not common. We get used to very comfortable to our promotions, our new spaces, and we tend to forget where we come from. And Minister, let me tell you, as UNDP, we see that and we feel that. I have the opportunity to work with you and your team and many other ministries, and we see this administration is truly, as we say in Trinidad, cooking with gas. But a lot is happening also globally and regionally. The world has changed quite a bit in the last year or so. So my question, Minister, is what would you say to the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago that wants more, faster, better, that feels that uncertain?
Well, you see, that's one of the beautiful things that I think coming into this administration under this Prime Minister, who I think is a leader that wants the best for Trinidad. And I think she's demanding of us that we, as well, under her leadership and guidance, do the best that we can. I think people have a right to demand that best. I think people are deserving of the best that we could do. I think sometimes we not always exemplify the things that our Prime Minister wants of us, that our people want of us. But that's why there is this striving for. There was a priest friend of mine used to teach me and used to tell me that we live in liminality. Okay. We are not what we used to be, but we haven't yet become what we will be. And there's this space in between that you're shaping and growing and so on. The danger with sometimes with what we do is that there is the expectation of the now. I never quite understood it. Maybe it is that people live in but I see it in my children. When things are made to have a certain shelf life, a certain lifespan, you have microwave and you have washing machine. I remember the days when I had to hang up clothes to dry outside and you had to wait for it to dry. Now you zip it in a dryer and we live in this instant culture where there's instant gratification, where everything is about now. And I mean, you and I have lived long enough to know that you can't always, it's not always about the now. You do the best you can now in the expectation that you will plant some seeds. You would nurture some things that it will bear fruit in the future. But a lot of us don't have that patience. And sometimes a lot of us don't even have the time. We want it now because we're not trusting of the future. And that's why sometimes I think life has become, talk about all the global things. I mean, you look around, the whole world is as if life is no longer precious, that life is almost expendable. That's why it's easy to take a life, because what's the value? What am I waiting for? Why am I here? What are my expectations? And I can't wait for that. And I see I sense the impatience. I sense the urgency of persons and people's circumstances and situations.
Minister, let me turn now to a little bit towards the UN.
Yes.
A lot of it's happening. We turned 80 this year.
Yes.
We were born in a very different context.
I know.
Things have changed a lot. We are going under a serious reform to make sure that we are fit for purpose, that we respond to the current needs of the countries we serve. On the other hand, with everything that's happening globally, countries are focusing more inwards, focusing on their national priorities, on defense, on protecting my economy. So this is jeopardizing some of the spaces, the multilateral spaces. Conversations where every country, big or small, sit around the same table and have a voice, have a vote. You've been quite vocal about multilateralism, but also about the need of modernizing multilateralism. So my question to you, Minister, is what modern multilateralism mean and how the new UN should look like, in your opinion, Minister?
Well, let me just say this. In the Vatican II documents, there's a chapter called The Church in the Modern Day.
Okay.
And in that chapter, there's a line that says that in every era, the church must be relevant to the people she serves. This is the type of challenges that the UN is. It isn't just UN alone. All institutions are being challenged with those things at this time. religious institutions, political institutions, global institutions, IFIs, everybody. We are in a world where everything we used to, or we were used to or accustomed to, are now changing. All the norms are being decimated and new ones have to be shaped. The problem with it is that nature have ordered a vacuum. The problem with it is that there will always be a need for the UN of a shape or form. The question that you're asking is, what shape should that take? And, when the League of Nations was formed after World War I, no one thought then it would have morphed into what it is today. But remember what I said of liminality. You're no longer what you used to be. You are not yet, you haven't yet become what you will be. It's that in-between space that requires people like you and I to shape it. But it has to be shaped with what is the role that you are being called to play today. And that's why people are uncomfortable in that space. Because they're very comfortable with what they were defined with before. And it's very uncomfortable to be in a space where you haven't yet been defined in terms of those specific roles. So the UN cannot abdicate because it's hard. The UN cannot pull out because there's funding issues or this, whatever. What the UN has to ask herself is that, given all of these things, what now? And for institutions like yours, it becomes harder because it's so large, it's so big, and a custom being, maybe it don't need to be so big. Maybe it needs to be more agile. Maybe it needs to grow or morph, or But I have found in the UN, and I will, a good partner. I have found in you a good partner. I have found in the agencies of the UN, with Joanna, with the country, with the resident coordinator, and everybody else. We, as a government, we have found in you guys really, really good partners, and you have helped us in ways that I think you can't yet imagine, because we do not have to reinvent certain wheels. We do not have to create experiences. You have those experiences. You have those expertise. So you help shape what Trinidad and Tobago will ultimately evolve to. I don't envisage that there will ever be a world without a League of Nations, without a UN. I don't think anybody, regardless of whether people agree or disagree with the role that you play and so on, there will never be a time where there is not there would not be this place where we can come and disagree or agree as the case may be.
Minister, you have achieved a lot in your professional and personal life, but we all have unaccomplished ambitions. Tell me 2 things that are in your bucket list.
That's letting out state secrets. So the one thing, 2 things. I've been asked to write my memoirs.
Okay.
I've been contacted, and that's one of the things that I think I will probably, when I retire, I will sit down and write my journey, and write my memoirs. And it's one thing that has kept me very grounded is my mistakes. The mistakes I've made in my family life, the mistakes I've made as a human being, mistakes I've made as a man, the people I've hurt, the things that I could have done better and differently. And those are the lessons that I've learned, that have, for me, I really don't tout my accomplishments or care about, the things that I've done. In fact, I tell my children, they will do even bigger things and better things than I did. But I do have a sense as to what has gotten me here, how I've survived, and how I have stood on the shoulders of those who have come before me, and I've learned from their lives, their mistakes. The thing that we have to make sure is that we don't just document our successes and document our failures, so that our children and those coming after us can learn from what we went through, and so that hopefully they won't make the same mistakes we make. And that's why I'll always be grateful to Kamala Prasad Visesa, because what she did is give me an opportunity to end my working life the way I would like to, in service. And so she has fulfilled one of my bucket lists for me, and hopefully I would be able to repay that generosity in humble service. And when I'm done with this, then I will document the history of my own mistakes so that others could probably benefit from some of the failures I had.
Being the Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development was not in your plans right now.
No, I actually coming back into, I had no plan to come back into politics.
What happened, Minister?
Well, Kamala Prasad. Well, to be honest, when she asked me to come and speak on a business platform, on a business forum, it was just before. In fact, I was on my way here when the then Prime Minister called elections.
Okay.
So I had actually intended to come and speak on a business forum. And on my way here, the elections got called. So it turned into a political meeting, a political business forum, and where we appear together. I think on social media, I think there's in my Instagram, I think my team put up a picture of that particular event.
Okay.
When we were at that event, and after that, I am, remember I remember the PNM at that time, and so people saw me then, and some interpreted it as a betrayal. But for me, I've always felt that I served in the PNM under Patrick Manning because I felt he was the best person to lead the country at that time. And when I went on the platform and endorsed Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, I genuinely felt then, as I do feel now, that she is the person to lead this country at this time. So while I am grateful to her, I came into this because at that time, I genuinely believed, and I had no hesitation in endorsing her and committing whatever I could do to make sure that not only was she successful, but that the country benefited as well.
One thing we are collaborating and something you are leading, Minister, is this National Development Plan.
Yes.
This vision that will guide the future of Trinidad and Tobago. What are the 2-3 key elements you would like to see in that National Development Plan, Minister?
Well, one of the things the Prime Minister talked about, and I feel very strongly about it as well, is to make sure that people have access to decent book. I think, we have come from an era where when I was younger, we had Jude and URP and CPEP and all these other things and so on. And one of the things that the economists will tell you is that our productivity in Trinidad and Tobago at this current stage is about 54-55%, whereas in many other countries, productivity is about 70-74%. We have created a mentality of what we call a make-work type of mentality, where people are just getting by. And I remember there was a campaign in the US at some stage where somebody was campaigning on the fact of it is not good enough for people to get by. People need to get ahead. And that's what decent work does. So decent work, living wage, those are the things we have to aspire to give people an opportunity where they don't feel that they're dependent on the state, but they are contributing to the national well-being. The second thing I think coming out of the agenda that the Prime Minister's laid out before us is to grow the non-hydrocarbon side of our economy, which includes our orange economy, which includes the blue economy. We are blessed with so many wonderful things, but sometimes I think we take the easy way out. And the easy way out is to live in a world of subsidies and live in a world where we don't have the responsibilities and so on. But that is not true. That is not the reality of life. That the reality of life is that we all need to be able to contribute, to work hard, and to build in a meaningful way the Trinidad and Tobago we want. I've always believed that that any organization is only as good as the people in the organization, but it's true of any country. If we want this country to be better, we need to be better. If we want this country to become much more productive, we have to become more productive. And so there's a world of things outside there waiting for us. I mean, we have done well in terms of the carnival and everything else and so on, but there's so much more than that. So that whole space, that whole creative space, I think, is yearning for us to develop it more. And the third thing is my pet peeve. I think we are people who do not cherish what we have. We litter, we destroy, we don't maintain, we are very negligent of space. And I think it sometimes reflects a culture where I think we have become, I don't want to use the word selfish, but it's about me and not about us. It's about, and that's not the Trinidad and Tobago that I know. That's not the Trinidad and Tobago I grew up in. And that's not the Trinidad and Tobago that my Prime Minister is holding us to. She's calling us to a time when we all recognize that all of us, this is our space. We need to be careful and conscious with this space. And she talks about what are we handing over to the next generation. And for me, that you asked me for three. I mean, I could talk about, but I was about those three things. I just want us to be able to be a people who realize that we share this space with others.
We country.
We country.
How would you like to be remembered, Minister?
Two things I'd like to remember about being somebody of passion and somebody who serves with humility. But I don't see this as my legacy. I see this as the legacy of the Prime Minister, because it is her victory and her call to service that we all build a platform to give effect. And so the way I see it is that if she is successful and the country is successful, then I can rest in peace. Have they adjusted to life in Trinidad?
The energy of this country, it's something that is not easy to find. I mean, I go around the savannah every day. I talk to people, they talk to me. There's a connection that is not, I mean, we Trinidadians, we take it for granted, but it's not common. Having this conversation with a minister in other countries is not easy. Everything. Working with your team, for instance, Minister, is something that is a duty, but it's also a pleasure. So sometimes I think you take for granted how good this country is in so many ways.
Before you leave here, what is the one thing you want to accomplish?
In Trinidad and Tobago, I want to serve this country. I want to make sure that the UN and UNDP is relevant, that we listen, that we partner, and that we deliver. I see we are very much in line, and we can help to accelerate change, things that are important for the long term, because things are changing very fast. But we need a planet to live in, and with the humanity that comes together. And there's so many changes, digital, climate change, that are putting some of these basic things at risk.
Well, we are very fortunate to have you here. And so thank your family for us as well. And I think we have a lot of work to do together.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Minister Swaratsingh as much as I did. Please make sure to share your comments, your likes, and see you in the next season.